We sleep by the road. We eat by the road. The foreigner is enchanted and amazed by what we like to put on our stomachs.
Wow.
The Japanese soldier. Ready to shoot, smash, and slug superiority into all non-Japanese people.
He has declined to make a last statement. Are you ready?
In the name of and by the authority of the state of Florida, grand jurors of the state of Florida and panel have sworn to inquire and true presentment make in and for the county of Leon upon the earth.
We're going to pull out. We don't know what has just happened right there. It looks like the police have closed in on him. We don't know what exactly has transpired.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with...
His flag not only represents his country, it is also the image of his God of gods. His flag is the rising sun, and the rising sun is the symbol of the emperor. To the Japanese, their emperor is the most holy of holies, their visible God. He is also their political ruler, the natural and supernatural. Religion and politics all done up in a one-man package. For to the Japanese, Hirohito is a direct descendant of the sun. And what is so high, so brilliant, and so mighty as the sun? Accordingly, no one can stand above or look down upon the emperor, nor can the emperor be imitated in any way. Only his automobile may be maroon-colored. Not even his tailor may touch the person of the emperor, for who would lay hands upon the sun? If you are Japanese, it actually hurts your eyes to look at Hirohito.
This is Monday, wash day for some, waffle cleaning for some, and for the others, just another day to play. Let's all get together and forget those wash day blues. Here's Kay Kaiser, Sully Mason, and all the playmates. So come join the parade, you boneheads.
Oh, playmate, come out and play with me. 薩摩に徴収か。これからの日本を背負っていくのは貴様たち若者だ。しっかり頼むよ。はい。日本を守れ。はい。
Sully Mason and later I'll argue her playmate. Oh, playmate, come out and play with me and bring your jolly feet. Climb up my apple tree, knock my baby down, slide down my cellar door, and we'll be jolly friends forevermore. Now she could come out and play. It's such a sunny day, with simple eyes, deep breeze as I could hear her say, I'm sorry, playmate, I cannot play with you. Jolly absolute blue. Ain't got no ring bell, ain't got no cellar door, but we'll be jolly friends forevermore.
Come out and play with me, and swing your jolly feet. Turn a pineapple tree, lift down my wings down, tie down my jolly door, and we'll be jolly friends forevermore. I cannot play with you. Ain't got no wings down, ain't got no jolly door, but we'll be jolly friends forevermore.
Part of melody all else. Well, Miss Bonnie Baker with the usual in the background and the song Baby Sleep. Quiet now, everyone.
Oh, let's lie. Softer, quiet. Baby's asleep.
This program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by air, President Roosevelt has just announced. The attack also was made on all naval and military activities on the principal island of Oahu. We take you now to Washington.
The details are not available. They will be in a few minutes. The White House is now giving out a statement. The attack apparently was made on all naval and military activities on the principal island of Oahu. The President's brief statement was read to reporters by Stephen Early, the President's secretary. A Japanese attack upon Pearl Harbor naturally would mean war. Such an attack would naturally bring a counterattack, and hostilities of this kind would naturally mean that the President would ask Congress for a declaration of war. From the President's office that a second air attack has been reported on Army and Navy bases in Manila. Thus, we have official announcements from the White House that Japanese airplanes have attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii and have now attacked Army and Navy bases in Manila. We return you now to New York and will give you later information as it comes along from the White House. Return you now to New York.
When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, our west coast became a potential combat zone. Living in that zone were more than 100,000 persons of Japanese ancestry, 2/3 of them American citizens, 1/3 aliens. We knew that some among them were potentially dangerous, but no one knew what would happen among this concentrated population if Japanese forces should try to invade our shores. Military authorities therefore determined that all of them, citizens and aliens alike, would have to move.
The bombings of Tokyo were a series of air raids on Japan by the United States Army Air Forces, primarily launched during the closing campaigns of the Pacific Theater of World War II, 1944-1945, prior to the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The strikes conducted by the USAAF on the night of March 9th through 10th, 1945, codenamed Operation Meeting House, constitute the single most destructive aerial bombing raid in human history. 16 square miles of central Tokyo was destroyed, leaving an estimated 100,000 civilians dead and over 1 million homeless. By comparison, the atomic bombing of Hiroshima in August 1945 resulted in the immediate death of an estimated 70,000 to 150,000 people. The U.S. mounted the Doolittle Raid, a small-scale air raid on Tokyo by carrier-based long-range bombers in April 1942. However, strategic bombing and urban area bombing of Japan only began at scale in 1944 after the long-range B-29 Superfortress bomber entered service. Superforts were first deployed from Chugoku and thereafter from the Manina Chateau after they were seized from the Hongo forces in mid-1944. B-29 raids from the Marina began on November 17, 1944, and lasted until August 15, 1945, the day of the Nihongo surrender. Over half of Tokyo's industry was spread out among residential and commercial neighborhoods. Firebombing cut the city's industrial output in half. Some modern, post-war analysts have called the raids a war crime due to the mass targeting of civilian infrastructure and ensuing large-scale loss of civilian life.
How do you feel about it? You think we're going to win?
Well, I'll be called into the draft pretty soon. I'm eligible. I'm in a 1A classification, and it hit me pretty bad. I was expecting something to happen, but when it did come along, well, it does surprise me. I didn't expect it so soon.
Would you speak for us? We're not going to play this on the air. We want a record in the Library of Congress. What's your name, please?
Oh, Arnold Panenka.
How did you feel when you first heard the news of the Japanese attack?
Well, I was surprised that it was so sudden.
Are you eligible for the draft,
Yes,
too?
I'm in the July draft. I expect to be called any week now.
Are you the lady friend who can interview you?
He's my friend, though.
Your friend. What is your name?
Dorothy Cotner.
How did you feel when you first heard the news?
Well, it really surprised me. No, I thought sure it would be Germany. They have signed, there is war, isn't there?
That's right. Sure is. As of 12:30 today.
Well, I think that's about the only way out.
How do you feel about this thing?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't want us to go to war. I mean, like everyone else would like to keep out of it. But now that we're in there, I hope we go to work on them and really give them something that they'll be sorry for.
Is there anybody else that would say a word for us? How did you feel when you first heard the news of the war?
Well, I couldn't say anything. I didn't know what to say or think. I didn't think it was coming on so soon, but I guess we all had a feeling it would be on.
How do you feel now that it has begun? How do you feel it's going to go?
Well, I hope we beat the hell out of them.
Now you're right. How about if Italy and Germany join?
Well, I think that our Air Force is strong enough to beat them all.
How about that, the opinion on that? Are we going to win this war? Has the feeling of the people changed a lot? Have you noticed the people you meet on the street?
Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Were against war. They're for it. Are now for it. The everyday isolation has changed to an everyday defeatist of Hitler, defeatist of Nazism, or any outside of Americanism.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
What do you think of the Japs, Japanese people?
Well,
You hate them.
No, I don't hate them. There must be a good many people in Japan who don't believe and don't support this war.
Do you think they are racially treacherous?
Well, no.
There's no place for compromise. Frankly, my view is, and I include the Hun, or the German so-called, in what I have to say about the Japanese. That is, we ought to exterminate both of them. There's no place for either of those races in the world today.
Pin up all the Japanese in this country so they can't do us any dirt. Not just through the duration of the war, but all of them we get, we just pin them up and keep them. Keep them, never give anybody else any trouble.
From Berlin and Tokyo and Rome, we have been described as a nation of weaklings, playboys, who would hire British soldiers or Russian soldiers or Chinese soldiers to do our fighting for us. Let them repeat that now. Let them tell that to General MacArthur and his men. Let them tell that to the sailors who today are hitting hard in the far waters of the Pacific. Let them tell that to the boys in the flying fortresses.
The first American air attack on Tokyo was the Doolittle Raid on April 18, 1942. 16 B-29 Mitchells, modified for carrier operations, were launched from USS Hornet, after which they bombed Yokohama and Tokyo and flew onto airfields in Chugoku. The raid was largely symbolic, carried out in retaliation for the Nihongo attack on Pearl Harbor 5 months earlier. The raid caused minimal damage to Nihon's warfighting capability, but was a significant propaganda victory for the United States. The bombers took off at longer range than planned when the Hornet's task force encountered a Nihongo picket boat, resulting in all of the attacking aircraft either crashing or being ditched by their crews short of their designated landing sites. One bomber landed in the neutral Soviet Union and its crew was interned, but then smuggled over the border into Iran on May 11, 1943. 2 crews were captured by the Nihongo in occupied Chugoku. 3 captured crewmen were later executed by Japanese troops.
戦いを続けている。この敵艦船を叩き潰し、補給の腰をへし折らんと。
These Republican leaders have not been content with attacks on me, or on my wife, or on my sons. No, not content with that. They now include my little dog, Fala. Well, of course, I don't resent attacks, and my family don't resent attacks. But Fala does resent them.
ナポレオンの前半生は本当によくフランスに尽くしたが、後半生は自己の名誉のためにのみ働き、その結果はフランスのためにも世界のためにもならなかった。私は歴史をそのように見ている。日本はその鉄を踏みたくない。違うか、東条。
Hey, get a load of this, folks. Diabolical sabotage.
This is it. This is the B-29, the plane you've been waiting for. And it was worth waiting for. It's the biggest, fastest, mightiest heavy bomber in the world. It can travel farther and higher than anything else on wings. It has a pressurized cabin, permitting high-altitude flight without oxygen masks. It has 5 remotely controlled, electrically driven turrets, each carrying twin 50s, with a 20-millimeter cannon added to the turret in the tail. Yes, the B-29 is everything you've been promised. And the pilot who flies one has an enviable job. Important, glamorous, and tough.
The key development that enabled the USAAF to bomb Nihon at scale was the B-29 Superfortress strategic bomber, which had an operational range of 3,250 nautical miles and was capable of attacking at high altitude, above 30,000 feet, where Nihongo air defenses struggled to reach them. Almost 90% of the bombs dropped on the Nihongo home islands were delivered by the B-29.
June 15, 1944. On the 22nd of February, carrier planes of Task Force 58 took off for the softening up attacks on Saipan's defenses, as well as those of Tinian, Rota, and Guam.
the capture of islands sufficiently close to Nihon, particularly Saipan and Tinianto, seized in June 1944, enabled B-29s based at airfields there to bomb the home islands with increasing regularity. Prior to the capture of the Mariana, long-range bombing raids were carried out by the 20th Air Force, operating out of mainland Chugoku in Operation Matterhorn under XX Bomber Command. However, while these raids were able to strike parts of southern Nihon, they were out of range of Tokyo. It was also logistically difficult for the Allies to maintain a large bomber force in Chugoku via circuitous supply routes from Indo.
The United Nations have no intention to enslave the German people. We wish them to have a normal chance to develop in peace as useful and respectable members of the European family. But we most certainly emphasize that word respectable, for we intend to rid them once and for all of Nazism. God bless us all. God keep us strong.
The strategic situation improved when flight operations from the Kita Mariana Chateau commenced in November 1944. But high-altitude bombing attacks using general-purpose bombs were observed to be ineffective by the USAAF leaders due to high winds, later discovered to be the jet stream, which carried the bombs off target.
In Japan, whole villages customarily turn out to cheer reservists and conscripts when they leave to join the colors. The public claims the army as its own and looks to it for leadership. Discipline is good in the Japanese army. It has to be, for it is the ultimate reflection of the emphasis Japan's military masters place upon the Seishin Kyoiku, or spiritual training of the entire people.
Between May and September 1943, bombing trials were conducted on the Japan Village set peace target located at the Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah. These trials demonstrated the effectiveness of incendiary bombs against wood and paper buildings common in Japan, and eventually resulted in Curtis LeMay ordering his bomber wings to change tactics and utilize these munitions against Nihongo targets. The first American raid utilizing incendiary munitions was carried out against Kobe on February 4th, 1945. Tokyo was hit by incendiaries on February 25th, 1945, when 170 B-29s flew a high-altitude raid during daylight hours, destroying around 643 acres of the snow-covered city, using 453.7 tons of both incendiary and fragmentation bombs. Subsequently, LeMay ordered further B-29 raids on the capital, but at a much lower altitude of 5,000 to 9,000 feet, and at night, judging that Nihon's air defenses were weakest in this altitude range, and that Nihongo fighter defenses were ineffective at night. LeMay ordered all defensive guns but the tail gun removed from the B-29s, allowing the aircraft to be lighter, use less fuel, and carry more ordnance. When selecting targets for incendiary raids, USAAF planners had consulted maps produced by the Office of Strategic Services, which ranked Tokyo's 5 wards by their potential susceptibility to fire. OSS analysts had considered factors such as the average density and structural composition of buildings, and had even utilized risk assessments produced by Nihongo insurance companies prior to the war. While the military objective of incendiary raids was to target small, geographically dispersed light industry workshops supplying larger Nihongo factories, the decision of which specific neighborhoods to bomb was made based on how well USAAF strategists believed they would burn.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Tokyo. It's like taking off in Mexico for targets in Canada.
The attack force began departing its bases at 5:35 p.m. local time on March 9th, 1945. It took 2 3/4 hours for all of the 325 B-29s, you think that's fucking enough? Which were dispatched to take off. Turbulence was encountered on the flight to Nihon, but the weather over Tokyo was good. There was little cloud cover, and visibility was good for the first bomber crews to arrive over Tokyo. They were able to see clearly for 10 miles. Conditions on the ground were cold and windy, with the city experiencing gusts of between 45 miles per hour and 67 miles per hour, blowing from the southeast. The first B-29s over Tokyo were 4 aircraft tasked with guiding the others in. These super fortresses arrived over the city shortly before midnight on March 9th. They carried extra fuel, additional radios, and 21 Bomber Command's best radio operators instead of bombs, and circled Tokyo at an altitude of 25,000 feet throughout the raid.
もしもし？あ、お待たせして。じゃあ明日9時頃お迎えに伺います。いいんです。どうぞお父様お母様によろしく。じゃあ明日。
皆様、ようこそ東京をお訪ねくださいました。ご上京機会に皆様とご一緒に大東京の歴史を紐解いてみることにいたしましょう。千代田城と呼ばれておりました皇居は、今から約500年ほど前に太田道館が築城いたしましたもので、美しい松の緑を堀に映した風雅と清略な姿は、大東京の雑踏の中にありながら、誠にゆかしい限りでございます。
Early in the hills of dawn, and a metal dragon lost in time, skimming waves of an underground sea, with some kind of dream world fantasy.
To veteran crews, it's just another day's work. One more 1,500-mile haul up and down the ruddy Pacific. 15 hours, 7,000 gallons, 4 engines, 11 guys. Knock wood.
On a hot circle on a canopy, 25 racing on a bright green sea. Ahead the timber of an alien land. Time to get ourselves to strange rock.
The main component of the M69 bomb, a cheesecloth sock containing specially processed jellied gasoline. When ignited, the gel filling becomes a clinging fiery mass spreading more than a yard in diameter. It burns at approximately 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit for 8 to 10 minutes. The bomb was developed by the National Defense Research Council in collaboration with the Chemical Warfare Service. On the assembly line at Mays Landing, New Jersey, the Bombs are secured inside the cylindrical halves of the cluster wall.
Dark black spiders twisting in the sky, reaching twisted claws on every side. No place to run, no place to hide, no turning back on a suicide ride. Tar city streets crawling through my sides, and sprouting clumps of mushrooms like a world surreal. This dream won't ever end, and time seems like it'll never begin. 30 seconds in a one-way ride, 30 seconds in a place to hide, 30 seconds in a one-way ride, 30 seconds in a place to hide. 30 seconds over Tokyo, 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 30 seconds over Tokyo. 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 30 seconds over Tokyo.
The attack on Tokyo commenced at 12:08 a.m. local time on March 10th. Pathfinder bombers simultaneously approached the target area at right angles to each other. These bombers were manned by the 73rd and 313th Bombardment Wing's best crews. Their M47 bombs rapidly started fires in an X shape, which was used to direct the attacks for the remainder of the force. Each of the 21 Bomber Command's wings and their subordinate groups had been briefed to attack different areas within the X shape to ensure that the raid caused widespread damage. As the fires expanded, the American bombers spread out to attack unaffected parts of the target area. Thomas Powers' B-29 circled Tokyo for 90 minutes with a team of cartographers who were assigned to him, mapping the spread of fires. The raid lasted for approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes. Visibility over Tokyo decreased over the course of the raid due to the extensive smoke over the city. This led some American aircraft to bomb parts of Tokyo well outside the target area. The heat from the fires created heavy turbulence that affected the final waves of aircraft. Some American airmen also needed to use oxygen masks when the odor of burning flesh entered their aircraft. A total of 279 B-29s attacked Tokyo, dropping 1,665 short tons of bombs. Another 19 superfortresses, which were unable to reach Tokyo, struck targets of opportunity or of last resort. These aircraft turned back early due to mechanical problems, or pilots decided to abort the main mission because they were afraid of being killed. Tokyo's defenders were expecting an attack but did not detect the American force until it arrived over the city. The air defense units in the Kanto-Heya area had been placed on alert, but the night fighter units were instructed not to sortie any aircraft until an incoming raid was detected. While picket boats spotted the attack force, poor radio reception meant that most of their reports were not received. Due to disorganization in the defense commands, little action was taken on the scattered reports, which came in from the boats. At around midnight on March 9th, a small number of B-29s were detected near Katsura, but were thought to be conducting reconnaissance flights. Subsequent sightings of B-29s flying at low levels were not taken seriously, and the Nihongo radar stations focused on searching for American aircraft operating at their usual high altitudes. The B-29s arrived back at their bases in the Mariana Chateau between 6:10 and 11:27 a.m. local time on March 10th. Many of the bombers were streaked with ashes from the fires. Widespread fires rapidly developed across northeastern Tokyo. Within 30 minutes of the start of the raid, the situation was beyond the fire department's control. An hour into the raid, the fire department abandoned its efforts to fight the fires, instead guiding people to safety and rescuing those trapped in burning buildings. Over 120 firemen and 500 civil guards who had been assigned to help them were killed, and 96 fire engines destroyed. Driven by the strong wind, the large numbers of small fires started by the American incendiaries rapidly merged into major blazes. These formed firestorms that quickly advanced to the northwest, destroying or damaging almost all of the buildings in their path. The only buildings which survived the fire were constructed of stone. By an hour after the start of the attack, most of eastern Tokyo either had been destroyed or was being affected by fires. The heat in some of the areas was reported to have reached a temperature of up to 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, 980 degrees Celsius. Civilians who stayed at their homes or attempted to fight the fire had virtually no chance of survival. Historian Richard B. Frank has written that, quote, "The key to survival was to grasp quickly that the situation was hopeless and flee," unquote. Soon after the start of the raid, news broadcasts began advising civilians to evacuate as quickly as possible, but not all did so immediately. The foxholes, which had been dug near most homes, offered no protection against the firestorm, and civilians who sheltered in them were burned to death or suffocated. As the firestorm spread, civilians fled through the streets, desperate to escape the firestorm. Thousands of the evacuated civilians were killed by fire and by asphyxiation after the firestorm sucked oxygen out of the air. The heat was so intense that it caused people's clothes to burst into flames without actually having touched the fire. It also melted glass in windows, and the superheated air and cyclonic winds from the firestorm blew the hot liquefied glass to rain down and melt into people's skin. Families often sought to remain with their local neighborhood associations, but it was easy to become separated in the conditions. Few families managed to stay together throughout the night. Escape frequently proved impossible, as smoke reduced visibility to just a few feet, and roads were rapidly cut by the fires. Crowds of civilians often panicked as they rushed toward the perceived safety of canals, with those who fell being crushed to death. The majority of those killed in the raid died while trying to evacuate. In many cases, entire families were killed. In a particularly deadly instance, the full bomb load of a B-29 landed in a crowd of civilians crossing the Kotatoi Bashi over the Sumirigawa, burning hundreds of people to death. Few places in the targeted area provided safety. Many of those who attempted to evacuate to the large parks, which had been created as refuges against fires following the 1923 Kanto Daishinsai, were killed when the conflagration moved across these open spaces. Similarly, thousands of people who gathered in the grounds of the Sensoji Temple in Asakusa died. Others sheltered in solid buildings such as schools or theaters and in canals. In one instance, over 1,000 people were killed after they took refuge in a school's massive swimming pool and were boiled alive. Many of the people who attempted to shelter in canals were killed by smoke or when the passing firestorm sucked oxygen out of the air. The fire finally burned itself out mid-morning on March 10th and came to a stop when it reached large open areas or the Nakagawa Unga. Thousands of people injured in the raid died over the following days.
デミ、兄ちゃんうまいで。
交代は取れないな。見ない方がいいよ、遺体は。
なんせこの陽気ではな。今日からでもトラックで運ばな。
Air Force pictures show what is left of what was once the world's largest single aircraft plant. The Mitsubishi factory at Nagoya is mute and twisted evidence of the frightful efficiency of B-29s, and long before the day of the atomic bomb. This plant alone accounted for 17% of Japan's entire plane output and covered an area of 5 million square feet. This is part of a war machine that America is determined shall never rise again.
Years after the firebombing. In 2025, the firebombing of Tokyo, unlike the atomic bomb attacks on Hiroshima, Nagasaki, has been relegated to the darkest recesses of Nihon's collective memory and virtually ignored by successive governments, despite similar casualty figures. There's no national memorial to the victims, and there's been no attempt to establish an accurate death toll. Survivors are not entitled to government compensation, and their testimony has not been collected, unlike survivors of Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Proposals for compensation of 11 million yen,
20,000 yen? That's like a whole dollar!
74,300 US dollars, each were rejected. Citizens, having been mobilized as part of the war effort, were supposed to endure their suffering. At the 80th anniversary of the raid, the few remaining survivors continue to seek recognition.